Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Okay, before we begin and hear from our speaker today, Tova Green, let's go around the room and just say our names, take a little time in between. If I may start, my name is Roy.
I'm Peter.
Jack.
My name is Andre.
My name is Daniel.
My name is Ben.
David Lewis.
My name is Freddie.
My name is Manuel.
I'm Kei Matsuda.
Anthony.
I'm Jeffrey.
George.
I'm Jerry.
Baruch.
I'm Henry Rabinowitz.
Yes.
My name is Gary. Russell. I'm Len.
My name is Kai.
My name is Tom Torn.
I'm Jim Stewart.
I'm Jack Busby.
Oh, Sherry.
My name is David.
Steve.
My name is Michael.
My name is Brian.
My name is Jerry.
My name is Nathan.
My name is Fred.
I'm Richard. My name is Cass Clayton.
Jim.
Ron.
My name is Ray Dyer.
My name is Jeff.
Peter.
Richard.
And
Jonathan.
thank you. Tova Green began sitting at the San Francisco Zen Center in 1990 after many years of Vipassana practice. She became the San Francisco Zen Center resident in 1999 and was ordained as a priest in 2003 by Eijun Linda Cutts. She is currently director of the San Francisco Zen Center City Center, and 3 years ago, Tova co-founded the Queer Dharma Group, also at the San Francisco Zen Center. Welcome, Tova.
Thank you, Roy, for welcoming me and greeting me and for your introduction. And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back here. It's been a while since I spoke here. And on this rainy day, it's nice to be inside and warm and gathered together. And I could hear the rain on the roof, and it reminded me of sitting at Green Gulch and Tassajara and hearing the rain on the Zendo roofs in those places, which was always very comforting to me. It's a nice way to begin Sunday morning. So the topic of my talk today is on grief and gratitude, thinking about this week, which is, some of us think of Thanksgiving as the beginning of the holiday season. And although at Zen Center, the holiday season began October 31st, and I'll say a little bit more about that. But I think especially for those of us who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, the holidays are a mixed time, mixed feelings, both a time of celebration and often a time when we remember loved ones who are gone, and a time of loss. So I wanted to address both of those this morning. The title of my talk, though, is Whatever Leads to Joy, and it's a line from a poem by Marie Howe that I will share as part of my talk. So, as I said, at Zen Center, the holiday season began on October 31st, which is Halloween, but also at Zen Center we celebrate a Buddhist holiday called Sajiki, which is honoring the spirits of the hungry ghosts. And this is a ceremony that is also celebrated in Japan, often at a different time in August. It's called Obon. And it's a time when a special altar is created with bright colors and enticing foods. And the beginning of the ceremony involves an instrumental invocation ending in 3 loud crescendos where the hungry ghosts are attracted and woken up and invited to come into the ceremony so that we can offer them food and also offer them the Dharma and enable them to be satisfied. And when we think of hungry ghosts, they're often depicted as having very thin necks and very distended bellies because they can't get the nourishment that they need due to the constriction in their necks. And although in Buddhist cosmology there is a realm of the hungry ghosts, it's one of the 6 realms, and it's said that after we die we may go to one of those realms. But we think of hungry ghosts also as states of mind in our own experience, like parts of ourselves that are not able to be nourished for one reason or another. So this ceremony of feeding the hungry ghosts is also a way of nourishing parts of ourselves that we may push away or find difficult to accept. And in addition to that part of the ceremony where we make offerings to the hungry ghosts and do some chanting, there's a reading of the names of loved ones who have died in the past year. So it's also a memorial service. And then we began our food drive at Zen Center this year on Sajiki or Halloween with inviting people to bring contributions to the San Francisco Food Bank, recognizing that it's not only a symbolic state of mind, but there are many people in our community who are hungry. And this is something we continue through Thanksgiving, and we may continue it until the end of the holiday season. So I'm just thinking whether there's anything else I want to say about the hungry ghosts. I think I'll move on, but please feel free to ask me questions later if you want to hear more about the hungry ghosts in our lives, including in our own hungry ghosts, and how we recognize them. So with this season, as we look at all we have to celebrate, we may also keenly feel our losses. And this is a time when, as I said, we may feel the loss of those who have died, but also we may feel the loss of connection with our families. I mean, some of us may have families who fully accept us, and some of us may not. And, it's a time when people usually gather with their families. So if we're estranged from our families, this can be a time that's very painful, and a time when we may turn towards our friends and create, have our own, the families that we create are the communities that we are now part of. And also in this time of economic hardship, some of us may also be aware of loss of income or loss of jobs. So with the emphasis on giving at this time of year, and often on giving material gifts, how can we acknowledge our losses, make space for them, and also find what brings us joy? So it's, I think this time of year is very challenging. I was a hospice social worker for the last 3 years, and I think that really helped me tune into the ways in which grief is intensified at certain times of the year, certainly holidays, people's birthdays, anniversaries. And for many people I worked with, they knew it was going to be their last Thanksgiving or their last Christmas, and their families knew it as well. And for some people that meant the celebration was even more precious, and for others it was just unbearable. So even when we're not facing death of our own or someone close to us, I think that same kind of poignancy comes up at the holiday season, and we never know, of course, when we ourselves are going to die and whether this is going to be our last Thanksgiving or our last Christmas. We have no way of knowing that. So I think one of the fruits for me, you could say, of doing hospice work was to really emphasize in my own life how precious each moment is and how precious my connections are with the people I love. And that comes up more strongly at the holiday time. So, and our Buddhist practice teaches us not to turn away from what's difficult in our lives and to pay attention to what arises moment to moment, to notice even when we may be in the midst of a painful time, an act of kindness or a moment of beauty. So there's a phrase in the Genjo Koan. It's a piece of writing by the founder of Soto Zen, Eihei Dogen, who lived 800 years ago, but I find some of his teachings so relevant to my life and to our practice. And he said in that fascicle, the Genjo Koan, "Yet in attachment blossoms fall, and in aversion weeds spread." You may have heard this phrase. And if we think about blossoms as symbols of what we enjoy or find pleasurable, most of us love flowers, but we also know that flowers wilt and die. We can't hold on to them. And so that's the way we may experience the pleasurable times in our lives, the times we feel connected and joyous. It's natural to want those times to last, but we also know that everything changes and that they are going to pass. And so holding on to what's pleasurable can bring a lot of suffering. And similarly, in aversion, weeds spread. When you might think of weeds symbolically as some of the difficulties in our lives. If we try to get rid of them, they only come back. Especially there's an interpretation of the Genjo Koan that I really appreciate by a teacher named Shohaku Okamura, and he talked about when he was a monk in a temple in Japan, and they were preparing for this holiday of Obon, which happens in August, and they would try to clear the temple grounds of weeds, and it would take a very long time, and by the time they were finished, the weeds would be coming up where they had started. So there was no way they could really get rid of the weeds. And I think that's true in our lives as well. No matter how well our lives may be going, there's still going to be some things that come up that are going to be challenging for us, whether it's something we feel upset with ourselves about, or a person who we interact with who's difficult for us in some way, or recognizing some of the hardship in our communities or in the world. So that's part of our existence as well, and we can't really push it away. So I think we have a choice in every moment, which is to try to avoid the things that are difficult, or to face our difficulties and meet those who challenge us and find ways to respond to the cries of the world. Sometimes our ideas about how things should be get in our way, and I have an example of that. I usually love the month of November because my birthday is in November, and Thanksgiving is in November, and Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday in the American holiday year. It has many happy memories for me, and my birthday usually is a wonderful day as well. But this year, I woke up the morning of my birthday really early. I think it was 2:30 in the morning, and I couldn't fall back asleep, and I was thinking about an unresolved conflict with someone at Zen Center who someone I really appreciate, but that person had communicated something to me in a way that I found really troubling, and I woke up unable to stop thinking about it. And then later on, even in Zazen, I couldn't get these thoughts out of my mind, and I was really annoyed with myself for waking up the morning of my birthday thinking about this conflict instead of just feeling happy that it was my birthday and grateful for being alive. And but that's the situation that existed. And I did find a time later that morning to talk to the person I was having difficulty with, but the conversation didn't go very well. So it only kind of added to my misery, you could say. And later on that morning, however, we had a ceremony at Zen Center. I don't know if any of you walk by Zen Center on Page and Laguna. And if you've walked by recently, perhaps you've noticed a big change in the front of the building. We have now, instead, there used to be a chain link fence covered with ivy in front of the right side of the building. And recently we took the fence down and had a landscape architect do a plan for the front, and we planted some trees, including 4 Japanese maples, which were planted actually the day of my birthday. And we did a ceremony to welcome the trees that day. It's really beautiful. So if you have a chance to walk by before the leaves fall, which they will, they were yellow and now red, and they're really quite wonderful. And there are other shrubs that were planted that eventually will grow taller. And we also planted a new wisteria. There's one wisteria in front of the building that was said to have been planted by Suzuki Roshi, who was the founder of Zen Center. So this time, our abbot, Paul Haller, planted the other wisteria, and so we'll be able to think of him in years to come, and he's going to step down as our abbot in February. So later it was actually a few days later, I wrote a poem, which I'd like to share with you, which captures some of this sense of, I think what I want to convey in that is that there are ways in which we can meet a difficult situation, but there are also some things that can just shift in the course of a day that will help us remember what gives us joy. And so that's what happened. And I called the poem Whatever Leads to Joy. The day of my birthday, I woke too early, troubled. I didn't want to wake worried, and the not wanting only created another layer of dissatisfaction. Later, I had the unwanted conversation and still felt tense and tight. It was the day we celebrated the planting of 4 Japanese maples in front of the urban temple I call home. In their golden presence, we stood on the sidewalk, offered incense, and chanted while an ambulance screamed past. In that moment of joy, I realized nothing was extra, even the ambulance. So, living at Zen Center, a lot of ambulances come by, and I remember the words, Rabbi Angel, I'm also a member of Congregation Shar Zahav, and there have been a number of times during her drash or sermon when an ambulance will go by, and she always says, may they get there in time. And so I also think when I hear an ambulance, may they get there in time. That ambulance is hopefully saving someone's life. And it's really changed my attitude towards sirens, which, even during Zazen, may they get there in time. So thinking about the planting of these trees and chanting, we chanted the loving kindness meditation, and having an ambulance go by at that moment just seemed appropriate in terms of living in an urban temple. and practicing in the city, and holding the contrasting things that happen in our lives moment to moment. So, situations. So not only, when we have an idea of how something should be, that, and it doesn't go that way, that can be very difficult. And I was thinking of a couple of other situations among that situations some friends are dealing with. Recently, I visited two friends, a couple who had given birth to twins, and the twins were 3 months old when I visited, and their parents were exhausted. They had really, really wanted children, and they were and these babies were very special to them, but just as one baby was fed and falling asleep, the other one would wake up. And so they were very, very stretched. And even though they were happy to be parents, they were encountering, what did I say, a challenge that they had not expected. And I could see that, just what can I say? They really appreciated my visit. I think not because I was also very happy to see these babies, because I'd heard about them almost from the time of conception, but because they could talk about clearly and openly what a hard time they were having. And during my visit, they shared some chocolate that a friend had given them, which I think was one of the ways they were coping with exhaustion. Chocolate has many, many, what would you say, benefits. And I also I recently visited friends who adopted a puppy, and also, this was something they had been wanting for a long time, and they had no idea, however, that bringing a puppy into their household was going to affect their ideas about cleanliness and order, and also how they could make space for this new being in their busy lives. Someone who this being needed attention and walking, and since it was a young puppy, training and companionship. So initially there was a lot of tension around who was going to take care of the puppy when the other person was working. And so something that they thought would only be joyful had its other side, a challenge of many challenges of including this new being in their lives. So coming back to the holiday season, how can we make space in our thoughts, in our conversations, in our gatherings for some of the difficult feelings that arise, for the grief, the loss, the upset? And how can we acknowledge pain and suffering in ourselves, in our friends, and in our communities and the wider world, and still be open to joy, gratitude, and celebration? So grief can lead, I think, I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced grief at one time or another, and possibly some of you are feeling grief now. But sometimes grief can lead to our feeling separate from others. Particularly in our society, there's a tendency to feel that grief shouldn't linger, should be, if we lose someone and we need time to grieve, there may be a sense from our friends after a short time, well, you should be over it by now. And I think that can be very difficult when you are experiencing grief. And grief sometimes comes up at times when we least expect it. Although holidays, as I said before, holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries are times when grief may be very much more present. And the people we've lost, we really notice them, their absence. We miss talking with them, sharing highlights of the year, doing some of the rituals we have done with them at holiday times. So by bringing our friends and family members who have passed into our thoughts, into our conversations and our celebrations at holiday time, we may be able to feel our gratitude for all they have taught us and for their importance in our lives. I wanted to, at this point, share this poem by Marie Howe. Marie Howe is a poet who lives in New York. She's in her 50s, and she lives with her daughter, who's about 10. And she wrote one book of poetry largely about her experience with her brother Billy as he was dying of AIDS, and she refers to him in this poem. It's called My Dead Friends. I have begun when I'm weary and can't decide an answer to a bewildering question, to ask my dead friends for their opinion. And the answer is often immediate and clear. Should I take the job, move to the city? Should I try to conceive a child in my middle age? They stand in unison, shaking their heads and smiling. Whatever leads to joy, they always answer, to more life and less worry. I look into the vase where Billy's ashes were. It's green in there, a green vase. And I ask Billy if I should return the difficult phone call, and he says yes. Billy's already gone through the frightening door. Whatever he says, I will do. So, I think this question, asking my dead friends for their opinion, and the answer is often immediate and clear. And perhaps some of you have had conversations with loved ones that you've lost. But I love what she says here, that they answer whatever leads to joy, to more life and less worry. And to see if we can think about in our own lives what leads to more joy and less worry, more life, less worry, and to appreciate some of the ways in which the people we've lost are part of us now. I realized after my father died that some of the qualities I valued so much in him are now qualities in me. I think they've just kind of absorbed them over the years. And I'm very grateful, even though I miss him at times. I would love to hear what he might have to say about something that is happening in my life now. But there's a way in which I can almost hear him, if I really tune in. So I think that's what Marie Howe was talking about in that poem. So at this holiday time, we may want to put on our altar the photograph of someone we love who's gone, who we miss, or say their names at our gatherings, or make a gift in their memory. And to really appreciate some of the ways in which they live on in us. So I have one more poem that I'd like to share, and this one is by Naomi Shihab Nye. She's also a contemporary poet. She lives in San Antonio, Texas. And every year for the last several years, she's come to Tassajara to offer a poetry and Zen workshop in the summer with Paul Haller, our abbot. And I've had the great good fortune of going to 2 of those and really being inspired by her encouraging words and her friendliness and her presence. Her father was Palestinian. Her father has died, and her mother American. And the poem that I'd like to read is about her grandmother, who lived on the West Bank, just north of Jerusalem. And the poem is called "The Words Under the Words." My grandmother's hands recognize grapes, the damp shine of a goat's new skin. When I was sick, they followed me. I woke from the long fever to find them covering my head like cool prayers. My grandmother's days are made of bread, a round pat-pat and the slow baking. She waits by the oven watching a strange car circle the streets. Maybe it holds her son, lost to America. More often tourists who kneel and weep at mysterious shrines. She knows how often mail arrives, how rarely there is a letter. When one comes, she announces it, a miracle, listening to it read again and again in the dim evening light. My grandmother's voice says nothing can surprise her. Take her the shotgun wound and the crippled baby. She knows the spaces we travel through, the messages we cannot send. Our voices are short and would get lost on the journey. Farewell to the husband's coat, the ones she has loved and nourished, who fly from her like seeds into a deep sky. They will plant themselves. We will all die. My grandmother's eyes say Allah is everywhere, even in death. When she talks of the orchard and the new olive press, when she tells the stories of Joha and his foolish wisdoms, he is her first thought. What she really thinks of is his name. Answer if you hear the words under the words. Otherwise, it is just a world with a lot of rough edges, difficult to get through, and our pockets full of stones. So I really like the way she talks about her grandmother's hands and her the memory of her grandmother touching her when she was ill, her grandmother's voice, her grandmother's her grandmother making bread. And I think, hearing this poem, I can recall some of the ways in which my grandmother spoke to me and took care of me when I was ill. And perhaps there are people in your lives come up when you think, when you heard this poem, people who may have passed, who cared for you, who nourished you, who lived their lives fully and with connection, with connection and generosity. So I'm going to ask you now to just take a moment actually to think of the hands or the voice of a particular person you love or loved in the past, and to feel your gratitude for the gifts they gave you, for things they taught you, and for times you enjoyed together, or still do, if this is a person who's still in your life. And then, if you're willing, I would ask you to cup your hands in front of you and just imagine filling your hands with your gratitude, your appreciation for what you've received from that loved one. And then, as well for other gifts you experience in your life. And then I'd like to invite you, without speaking, to turn to someone near you and to share your gratitude with them, just to offer what's in your hands to someone near you. Thank you. So, as we turn towards the holidays, may we also turn towards our losses and, in this holiday season, celebrate whatever leads to joy. Thank you for your attention and your presence here today. And we have about 10 minutes for comments or questions. If anybody has something you'd like to bring up. Yes?
Thank you. I really just want to express appreciation for the Dogon quote about petals and inspiring weeds. That seems very fitting.
In attachment blossoms fall and innovation weeds spread.
Yeah.
So that struck a note for
Yes,
you.
yes, I sprout. I mean,
We all do. Thank you.
Would you say that again, please?
In attachment, blossoms fall, and in aversion, weeds spread. You're welcome. Maybe I'll say the next two lines after that because it's really interesting. Then he says, in aversion, weeds spread. To carry yourself forward and experience myriad things is delusion. That myriad things come forth and experience themselves is awakening. And I think what he gets at there is that when we carry ourselves forward and experience myriad things and think that myriad things are separate from us, we understand it incorrectly, because everything arises in relationship, is what he talks about later. And we can't push away anything because those things are part of us as well. The weeds are not separate from us, and the blossoms are also not separate from us. And even so today, the idea that I'm coming here to give a talk is kind of a wrong idea, that we're creating this experience together of this talk and this gathering and in this building, in this city, it all is arising together. So I love that line, but I also really appreciate what follows it. Yes?
I'm curious about hungry ghosts. Is that the same thing as craving? Or is it kind of craving taken to another level?
It's related to craving. Hungry ghosts, I think if we are craving for something that is unreachable, unattainable, we can have that experience of frustration and dissatisfaction or if no matter how much we have of something, we want more, and no matter, sometimes we want not just material things, we might want more knowledge. We feel whatever we have isn't enough. And there's a sense of something being unrequited. That is the feeling of the hungry ghost. So it can be something we can work with in our lives. At what point do we feel we're enough, or whatever we have is enough at that moment? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other comments or questions?
I remember a quote, someone asked John Rockefeller, when was enough? And he said, just a little more.
And I wonder if he felt that way at the time of his death, or whether he felt
That
he had
was,
enough.
I mean, he had achieved the most vast fortune ever, and he just wanted a little more.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the experience of the hungry ghost.
Yeah. And he had a terrible ulcer; he couldn't eat.
Yes.
I just wanted to relate a really nice episode the other day that I really feel grateful for. I've been having some work done at my house, and it wasn't done as well as I thought, but so I was a little bit bent out of shape. And but in the meantime, I had to take down the window blinds, and I inadvertently came across this place in Alameda. I live in Oakland, so I called the guy and he gave me directions, and I got lost. And so I pulled into a little mall in Alameda, and it was right next to the company van, but it was empty. So another nice guy pulled up, and he said, well, he had a smartphone. He says, well, look up their phone number. Meanwhile, the guy came to the van. So I followed him to the shop and went in, and I gave him the blinds. And he says, oh, he was, I think he was Chinese. He said, oh, it'll be around $10 each. And he wrote out an invoice real quickly, and he made a copy for himself. And I said, do I need a copy? He goes, oh no, I'll just give you my cell phone. And I just felt so nice to have this trust towards this nicest, one of the nicest, vendors I have ever worked with. He had just had this little shop in Alameda, and I was just so grateful for it. And then I came and I picked up the blind. He goes, oh, most of them were broken, but I fixed them, and I think something like that. But it was just the spirit with which he did his work. He put out this very trusting, marvelous vibe, and I was able to let go of wanting an invoice so I could say, please. And I'm just so grateful for that, especially in the midst of being disappointed with some other work that I had done. And it really just buoyed me up. And I think in times past I would have been really obsessed with the thing that went wrong. I wouldn't have been open, for this really sweet experience. And I was. And so I was able to enjoy some gratitude. So that's my little story.
Thank you for sharing it with us, and also just the way you happened to find the shop. It seemed like serendipity.
Yes.
Yeah. It's nice when we can be open to things like that. Thank you very much. I think there might be time for one more question or comment. If not, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tova, for today.
You're welcome, Brian.
I know that you have to leave very close to the noon hour. We still have a few minutes, maybe perhaps after our announcements. But we'll have to bring you back as soon as we can. Get you back in here in 2012. And happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Announcements. Cass.
I'm Cass. I'm your host today. Please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the Sangha. There are refreshments, and I think there's hot water for tea. The machine didn't seem to make as much noise as it usually does. If you have tea, wash your cup with hot soapy water. And there's a sign-up sheet on the credenza if you want to be added to the mailing list. I'll be coming around with the Donna Gold so that you'll have the opportunity to help the Sangha meet its expenses. Whatever is in your heart to donate is gratefully accepted. to $8 suggestion. People gather at the front door to go to lunch around 12:30. That's open to anybody who cares to participate. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Philip Prince and Bill Childs and I all sing the San Francisco Choral Society, and this afternoon at 4 o'clock we're giving a gorgeous concert of Mozart's Mass in C minor and a new commissioned piece by Uli Kortegungus, who's a Finnish composer, with an environmental theme, and it's wild and very unusual, and it's a great package of music. It's at Calvary Presbyterian, Phil Moore and Jackson at 4 o'clock.
That's glorious.
Did you go?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Tova, for a very nice talk about holidays. And to celebrate Thanksgiving Day, GBF is again having our annual potluck on Thanksgiving Day at my place in East Bay. So if you'd like to come, please let me know, because we are coordinating dishes. And because it's a potluck, we are flexible. So if your Thanksgiving plan falls through between now and Thursday, give me a call and you're welcome to come, even if you have to call that same day. And the event is also open to all the members and friends, so you're encouraged to bring friends, particularly if somebody you know do not have a plan, or somebody you just met the night before.
I just want to mention that next Saturday, a week from, it's Saturday, this coming Saturday after Thanksgiving is our monthly Queer Dharma meeting at Zen Center. It's from 1 to 3 on Saturday. Usually we meet the last Saturday of the month, but we'll also be meeting in December on the 17th, so it's not the last one in December. And our speaker next week will be Eugene Bush from Santa Cruz Zen Center, and in December I'll be the speaker there. But every last Saturday, generally. And if you're interested, you can find it on the San Francisco Zen Center website. But I know some of you have come to Queer Dharma, and it'd be great to see you there again.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone that GVF has an account at Community Thrift, which is at 623 Valencia Street. It's painted various shades of Pepto-Bismol pink. You can't miss it. And if you have anything you no longer have use for, if it gets sold there, GVF gets a portion of the sale. It's a great way to support the Sangha. And you should call them ahead of time to just check what you're offering they receive, because we'll look on their website, because they don't take a whole lot of things that might not be obvious. So before you schlep, call or check.
Thank you. We have a group discussion next Sunday, Sunday after Thanksgiving. Any other announcements? Okay, let's please stand for the dedication of marriage. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, and live believing in the equality of all that lives. Thank you for today. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.